Hello, everybody. My name is Amit. I'm sitting here today with my very good friend, Bill Sanoff. He is a real estate broker with John L. Scott Real Estate in Yelm, Washington. Bill and I have been friends for a long, long time. He's been doing this for many, many years. Bill, tell everybody how long you've been doing this.
I got in 2002.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm in 20 years plus now.
What prompted you to become a real estate professional?
Quite frankly, I was a yacht captain, and when I decided to get away from that because I was getting married, I started with the newspaper and started at the A's and got to the R's before I found something interesting, and it seemed like an interesting career choice. It certainly has been that, good times and bad, but
Right.
I'm glad I made the choices that I made, and I'm still doing it.
Right. So 20 years later, you must find something that you love about the industry, about the job and the work and the people that you're working with. And tell me, what do you love most about this business?
My favorite part is helping first-time buyers move into a home. You actually make a substantial difference in their lives, going from being a renter or living with their parents to living on their own in their own house. And that's a fundamental difference in people's lives, and it's very rewarding. Beyond that, it pays good, and I get to schedule my own time. I'm not 9 to 5 sitting at a desk or something along that line. I'm out and about doing things in the real world, and it's fun.
That's fantastic. So let's talk about those first-time home buyers, because I agree with you. They are significant as far as the audience goes and as far as the people that we work with. These are folks that need our help, right? When you're a first-time anything, you don't even know what you don't know. And so coming to the realization that you've got to take that step across a field that you're not aware, where are the mines loaded? Am I even capable of doing this? Is this the right thing? They need the help of a professional. And that's something that I've seen you do that many times with your clients that we've either shared or that I've seen from afar. But now, is the market still accommodating to the first-time home buyer? Do they even have a chance in this market?
Yes, of course they have a chance. The more money down, the stronger the offer looks. The better the offer price, the stronger the offer looks. But when people are ready to buy, they have a lot of questions, and there's a lot of conversations, and I'm constantly telling people the only dumb question is the one you don't ask. Sometimes that line gets pushed a little bit, but by and large, most people tend to ask the same types of questions over and over again. Not the same customer does over and over again, but from one customer to the next, the questions are familiar and usually have a similar response. But it's new to them, so it's important because if they don't know it, they don't know it. And I encourage people to keep asking the questions, because if it's on their minds, that's the best way to put it at ease, is to answer the question.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. So I would imagine that a lot of people right now are asking, is this the right time to buy a home? Is the market going to correct? Has the market already corrected? You're down south in Yelm and in the Thurston County area. Tell me, what are you seeing in your local market?
The market's still strong. It's not the frantic, hectic pace that it was a year or two ago. It has gotten a lot more civilized. People think the market sucks, but it doesn't. A balanced real estate market has somewhere in the 5 to 6 months of inventory. Current statistics from the MLS show us to have 2.5 months of inventory. That's still a very strong seller side market. It's still a very healthy, aggressive moving market. There's still the occasional bidding war on houses. But those have faded quite a bit. 2 years ago, it was in the first 3 hours of a listing, they would have multiple offers. People that hadn't even looked at the house yet would write offers. And that insanity has left the market. Now, instead of you have hours, you actually have days that you can think about it. The average sales time has gone from 2 or 3 days to 2 or 3 weeks. It's a lot more civilized. People have the opportunity to negotiate for radical things like a home inspection. something that I'd never, ever recommended not doing, but some people, they had to not do it because there was 5 other offers that had no home inspection. If they wanted the house, that's what they had to do. Well, now you can put a home inspection in there. You know, you may be able to negotiate on price. There's X factors in there that actually buyers can put conditions on the house. And that's a welcome reprieve back into the civilized world.
Absolutely. You've used words like civilized, sane, healthy. These are really important things, especially, I would say, for the first-time buyer, right? For the people that are scared to death because they've never done this before to begin with. And now you're saying to them, hey, you got to write an offer sight unseen. We're not going to inspect the house, so you don't know what you're buying after the fact. And, oh, by the way, if you don't do it right now, there's 10 other people willing to jump in and take your place, and you're not going to get a chance to get this house. That's got to be really tough for that first-time buyer. It would be tough for any buyer, but for the first-time buyer especially, I got to believe that this is a much better time for them to explore the market, even though interest rates are not what they were a year and a half ago, even though there's talk about, a housing bubble, which I don't think is there, even though there's concern about a recession, which may or may not happen. The opportunity for the right buyer is to have a normal process like what was going on when you and I started doing business together, where you had time, where you had inspections, where you had negotiation, where you had seller paid closing costs sometimes. We're coming back to that market, or we're back there now, which is really nice. Not everyone had that luxury a year ago.
Most people didn't.
Yeah. And they ended up buying things that after the fact, once they moved in, they started realizing, oh, the roof's going to fail in a couple of years. We're going to have to budget for that. Or we didn't expect there to be this many undealt with problems, the deferred maintenance and things of that nature. Now, they got a lower interest rate, to be sure, but they also ended up paying 10 or 20% above asking price just to get the seller to favor their offer over the competing ones that were received.
The market a year ago was just horrible to work in. It just was. The sanity had completely left the real estate world. I am happy to have it back as a civilized, is the best term I can use. To be able to do a home inspection is important, and to skip that is just unreasonable with the biggest purchase of your life.
So now you're doing a lot of work with sellers, from what I understand. You're listing homes for sale. What are their expectations, or how are you helping them set those expectations? Because they might be looking in the rearview mirror and saying, hey, a year ago, my neighbor sold his house for blah, 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 and you're telling me that I'm not going to be able to do that right now. How do you set those expectations for the sellers?
By managing expectations in the very beginning, telling them, last year, this was the case, and we had all of these crazy things, and you could expect to get multiple offers over the asking price, no inspections, no problems. All of that was going to be there. That market is gone. It simply doesn't exist anymore. And the best thing people can do is deal with the reality of today. Yes, we're going to sell your house. Yes, it's probably going to still be in the first month because the statistics are still showing a strong seller's side market. And we will sell it. We will sell it right away. Right away not being 2 or 3 days, but more like 3 or 4 weeks. And the asking price may or may not be the amount that you get, but will be fairly close to it. When they understand what the expectations are in the very beginning, they have a reasonable shot at not being disappointed when the reality offer comes in.
That's really helpful. I mean, I find that setting those expectations across the board, whether it's a seller, whether it's a buyer, whether it's interest rates, whether it's whatever it is, when you have that expectation, people know kind of in the back of their mind that this is going to be the deal. But they need somebody like yourself who's been doing this for a long time, who they can trust, who's going to develop that rapport with them, and who's going to guide them through this process. It's still an emotional process, whether you're a first-time buyer or even when you're a first-time seller, right? I mean, sometimes sellers have to sell a home in order to buy the next home, which makes them first-time sellers. And when I sold my home many, many years ago, I was a first-time seller, and I wanted all of that crazy. You know, you want crazy when it's in your favor. Right. Then it's fantastic. Oh, let the floodgates
loose. Give me crazy
loose.
good anytime.
Absolutely. It's when you're on the other side of that. And that's the thing. People think that it's only going to impact me right here, right? I'm only going to be the beneficiary of crazy when they write offers. But when I go to write my own offer, I want normal and sane and stable.
Right. And when you're doing them both at the same time, that's not how it works.
Right.
If it's crazy good for sellers, it kind of sucks for buyers. And the opposite is true. And you know, in my ideal world, it's when we have a balanced market and everybody gets a fair shake.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that fair shake and balanced and things of those nature, those sorts of words, that's really important, because in order to make a deal, I mean, everybody's got to have a seller that wants to sell. You got to have a buyer that wants to buy, real estate professionals who want to facilitate, lenders who want to lend. We've been through a lot of different markets, you and I, over the last 20 years.
Been through them all.
I've been through them all, exactly.
Crazy good, crazy bad.
That's right. And you know, also the stuff where 2008, 2009, 2010, where no one was doing anything by way of lending, where rules kept changing, where people were dropping in and out of the market, where we just didn't know what was going to happen next. And now we find ourselves in a place, I think change is a constant, but you should be comfortable with this, because as a captain of yachts, how big were these boats or yachts that you were driving or that you were captaining?
I was captain on a 90-foot yacht, and I was first mate on a 140-foot yacht.
Wow. So I'm from Texas. I'm a desert person, as you know. I don't do boats very well. I like to have friends that have boats, which is a really good thing. But what I know about the ocean is that it always changes.
Yes.
Right? I mean, whatever you have condition-wise today, whether it's currents, tides, winds, what have you, that's not always going to be the case. In fact, guarantee that it won't be the case. So that probably has prepared you to navigate some of these market swings that you've experienced over the last 20 years.
Could be. I honestly, I don't know. All I know is, you know, roll with the flow of the world and understand and pay attention to what's happening. Try to figure out what's happening next, and I don't try to worry about the rest. You know, you can put yourself in a room with rubber walls if you keep doing that.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. So, what would you advise somebody who wants to get into this industry? Is there some piece of magic or wisdom that you're really fond of?
Get a coach.
Get a coach.
Get a coach. Learn the business from somebody who's been there and done that, who's got a vested interest in helping you succeed. Most offices will train you, but there's a difference between training and real-world experience. Getting someone who's there ready to help you during the actual process and new things coming up. Someone that's been there and done that, ready to talk to you, is helpful.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I've been working with a coach now for more than 5 years, and a lot of my success, I mean, I did all the heavy lifting, and he's the first one to admit that, but learning how to do the heavy lifting is really important. You can't just go there you can, but you're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way, and you may take a lot more time to get to where you want to be.
A nudge in the right direction, avoiding some of the bear traps that happen in this business, and avoiding some of the insanity that comes to you in this business. Coaches can all help you with that.
That's great. Now, switching gears a little bit, what would you advise a buyer or a seller that wants to get into this market right now because something's changing in their life? Clearly something's changing and they have to move.
The first thing I would tell them is don't worry about the interest rates. And that's hard for people to swallow because, you know, last year they were 2-3%. Now they're 6-7%.
Right.
And that's a hard pill to swallow. But when you're buying a house, you buy the house, but you date the rate. What that really means is you own the house and you're going to have that through all of this, but you can refinance the loan if the rates come down. So if the rates suck now in a year and they don't suck, you could have all the equity in the house, but in a year you can reduce the rate and all of a sudden bring your payment down where you wanted it.
That's great advice, and it's advice I try to share with my clients as often as they'll listen, because you're right. Most people, when they call me, that's the first thing they ask. Hey, I want to know what your rates are. And we don't know anything about the client. We don't know what they want to buy the house for. The rates are different if you want to live in the home or you want to turn it into a rental. Those are two totally different rate environments, and we don't know what their credit scores are. We don't know anything about them, but that's the first thing that people ask. What ends up happening, though, and I tell them this and I caution them because I went through the same thing as a home buyer when I bought my current home. You fall in love with the property. And I know you've opened enough doors for people and shown enough homes along the way where you've seen that light bulb go off and you see it in their eyes and you know, wow, this is the one. This is the one for them. And then it's no longer financial. Now it's an emotional question that they have, like, can I have this? I really want it.
I remember I showed a house, this was probably 15 years ago now. I showed a house. We'd gone out and looked at like 4 or 5 others, and we got to this one, and the buyer looked at the house, and she went, I like this one. And I'm opening the door, the front door of the house. I just got the lockbox open. I'm opening the door, and she looks at it and says, I think I'm going to buy this house. As I opened the door, I reached right back around and closed it and said, are you ready to go, or do you actually want to take a look at it? And she wanted to take a look at it.
Well, that's
and
smart.
we did, and she did buy that house.
That's fantastic. And, you know, that's the sort of life-changing work that we do in this industry. And you see it in real time when people actually, their eyes light up and they realize this is home. Yeah. I want this. I see my kids growing up here. I see myself cooking in that kitchen or doing my projects in that garage or gardening in this beautiful yard. And you realize, wow, I've made a huge impact. Yeah. And I'm going to help them get to the finish line on this transaction. And whatever the rates are going to do, the rates are going to do. You're right. But as long as we can get people there, then we can always change those terms after the fact, but they've got the house. Yeah. And that's huge.
In that life-altering thing, I remember going out to this one couple I had taken them out to 3 or 4 different days, 10 or 15 houses, or 2 or 3 a day kind of thing. And we'd, as new houses came on the market, we'd go take a look at the new one. And there was this one vacant house that we were going to, and after having been through 10 or 15 others, I knew what they were looking for. I knew what they were looking for well enough, and I walked in and went, they're going to buy this house. I just know it, and it was vacant, so I was able to do this. I opened the door. When the customers got there, I'd already taken my tour through the house and had that realization. I went out to meet them out of the car, and I said, this is the house you're going to buy. Go take a look at it, talk amongst yourselves. I'll be waiting out here. Wow. And I let them go in the house, walk around the house. I had set that mindset, and they came back out and like, you were right. This is the house for us, and let's go write it up. And that was an awesome feeling to just know it. And, that was 10, 15 years ago, and I haven't had that feeling since, but it happened that day, and it was kind of special.
And you still remember it,
yeah.
That feeling. And that's a level of service. Now, sometimes, obviously, the house, it's not a perfect fit. You know the clients, you know what they're looking for, but the home in their price range or in their neighborhood, it's just not, it's going to be a compromise. Right. And sometimes we have to compromise. I tell people, it's that triangle. You can have it good, you can have it fast, you can have it cheap, but you only get to choose 2 out of 3. Right? With housing, it's the same thing, right? Sometimes you can't afford the footprint that you want or the neighborhood that you want or the new construction that you want. It's a trade-off. But the best way to get into this game is to get into this game, right? And we've spoken to first-time buyers as well that they may not be ready for that big home just yet, but the best way to get ready is to buy that first home, build up your equity, gain some valuable income, correct your credit, do whatever it is. Do you have clients that you see kind of multiple times that you've worked with on their first transaction, and then they call you back up and they're ready for the next home?
Absolutely.
Yeah, tell us about that, please.
The average first-time buyer, they own their first house for less than 5 years. They usually don't plan it that way, but that's usually how it works out. I've had a number of clients that I've started them off with their first home, sold that house for them, sold their next house, sold that house for them, sold them their next house. It's part of the longevity of being in business for 20 years and hopefully taking good care of people, and they keep coming back. And it's knock on wood, it's been a good success rate in that. it's very rewarding that, people know what you're going to do for them and what you've done for them. And when it's time to do that again, they come back. That means you took good care of them. And I've had a number of clients that become long-term friends. We talk, a few of them have stayed over at my house.
Wow.
And it's nice living on 20 acres in the middle of nowhere.
That's a beautiful spread you got out there for sure.
Yeah, people have stayed at my house. I've been to housewarming parties. It's fun, and it's really rewarding, especially when people call you back, or industry people. I had a title rep person that they know everybody in the real estate industry, and when it was time for them to buy or sell a house, they called me in. That was personally rewarding beyond belief. They know everybody.
Right.
They chose me.
Right. That's a great endorsement. I mean, that's like, where does the professional go when they need professional services? That person that selects you obviously has a ton of just appreciation and admiration for what it is that you do. So, Bill, as you start talking to people, because we're heading into the spring and summer, which historically, cyclically, that's the time of year that people start to think about buying homes, selling homes, making that transition. What would you tell the clients, whether they're first-time buyers or move-up buyers? What are you telling them to prepare for?
People make the decision to buy or sell a house usually around the holidays, and by the time they're ready to do anything, welcome to spring. And nobody wants to go look at a house when it's pouring down rain and crappy weather storms and all the other stuff. So it usually, spring is the big kickoff to the housing market, March, April, depending on the weather. The thing I would tell people is not to insult you, but in the spring, lenders get greedy. There's so much business going on, the rates go up because they can only process so many loans at a time, and that's one of the things the lenders do to slow things down on their end is they raise the rates up a little bit, make a little bit more money per deal, and slow the market down a little bit on deals coming in. Well, as the prices are going up in the spring market because all the sales are happening, the lenders get a little greedy and the rates go up. If you're going to buy a house, if you're thinking about doing it, and you can jump in that February or March market, you'll do better than if you do in the April market. There'll be more houses to pick from in April because the sellers have that same lag. They make the decision in the wintertime, and by the time they've cleaned this up, got rid of all the extra stuff, got the house ready to sell, it's April. And so a bunch of houses come on the market in April, but the better deals are right now through the end of March. Best thing I can say.
That's great advice. There's an old adage, I believe it's Chinese, but it may not be. The adage is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today, right now. And I'm in agreement with that. People are always looking for the best time, whatever that might be. And I would say that there's no great time. There's always something. Well, we got a trip coming up. We want to wait until junior's done with whatever, high school, junior high. That's how old I am. We had junior highs as opposed to middle school, but we want to wait for this. We want to wait for that. But that's always, in my opinion, just a distraction from doing the heavy lifting and dealing with the fear of the unknown. And I think that's what's really stopping a lot of our clients is that fear of the unknown. And so talk to someone like Bill, talk to a professional, talk to someone who knows their craft, who cares about helping people get into their next home, and figure out what you don't know, because you may be ready to go and you're just waiting for nothing. You might not need to be waiting. It's just a matter of getting off the fence and picking up that phone.
Deciding to act is probably the biggest step.
Yeah, it's very hard. Well, Bill, I really appreciate you taking some time, my friend. Thank you so much for coming out here all the way from Yelm, Washington. Bill Sonoff, John L. Scott Real Estate in Yelm. I hope we'll do this again, and look forward to talking more about things either nautical or real estate.